The ocean was chaos, shifting, merciless, and endless. But somehow, pirates found a way to rule it. Not with kings, not with crowns, but with laws. Strange, isn't it? That men branded as criminals, thieves, and outlaws created one of the fairest and most disciplined systems ever to exist at sea. While the empires of Europe rotted in corruption, pirate ships became floating republics, governed by written codes, oaths of honor, and punishments so swift they made even the bravest tremble. Because without rules, a pirate ship wasn't a vessel. It was a coffin waiting to sink. The articles of blood and salt. Every pirate ship had its own articles. They weren't just words scratched on parchment. They were sacred law, signed by every crewman before a voyage began. Some used ink. Others used blood. These articles decided everything. How loot was divided. Who commanded in battle. What happened if someone stole, lied, or disobeyed. It was democracy, yes, but a brutal kind. Every man had a voice, but every voice carried the weight of death. A captain could be overthrown if the crew voted it. A thief caught stealing from his mates could lose an ear, or worse, be marooned on a deserted island with nothing but a bottle of rum and a loaded pistol. Justice at sea wasn't delayed, it was performed. Order among outlaws? To the world, pirates were chaos incarnate. But aboard their ships, order was survival. The quartermaster, second only to the captain, enforced the code. He controlled the food, the pay, the punishment. Even the captain had to obey his decisions when it came to fairness. Fate was equalized. No nobleman's privilege, no favoritism. The wounded were compensated. Losing an arm might earn you extra silver. Losing a leg might double it. It was savage equality, and it worked. Empires crumbled under greed and hierarchy. Pirates thrived under discipline and shared fate. Because on the sea, one man's mistake could drown everyone. And so they built their own justice, sharper than any king's law. The blood trials, breaking the code, wasn't just rebellion. It was betrayal against the very soul of the ship. Trials were quick. The crew would gather on deck, form a circle, and the accused would stand before them. There were no lawyers, no juries, only witnesses and the word of the quartermaster. If guilty, punishment was creative and cruel. Whipping, flogging, branding, sometimes marooning. The most feared was keelhauling, tying a man to a rope and dragging him beneath the ship's barnacled hull until his flesh tore. Few survived it. To outsiders, it was barbaric. To pirates, it was justice. The law of brotherhood. Yet, beneath the brutality, there was something astonishing: unity. Pirates understood that fear alone couldn't hold a crew together. Respect could. They together, voted together, fought together. Every man had a right to voice his anger, to challenge his captain, to share in the spoils. It was a brotherhood born not from loyalty to flag or nation, but to survival, to each other. And this bond terrified the powers of the world. Because it wasn't gold or ships that made pirates dangerous. It was the fact that they had created a world without kings. A world where every man was equal before the mast. The law that outlived them. When the last pirate flags fell, when their bodies swung from the gallows, the world thought their laws would die with them. But they didn't. The pirate code influenced maritime law, naval conduct, even democratic systems centuries later. What began as a criminal necessity became a blueprint for freedom. They were thieves, yes, but they were also architects. Architects of order in the heart of chaos. And if you listen closely, when the wind hits the sails just right, you can almost hear the whisper of those old words carved into wood and memory. Every man shall have an equal voice in affairs of moment. No prey, no pay. No cowardice, no betrayal. And above all, the code is law. The code wasn't written by saints. It was born out of desperation, out of men who had seen too many lies, too much greed, and too much blood spilled by kings who called themselves righteous. To a pirate, the code was more sacred than scripture. Because unlike religion or law, it didn't serve a god or a crown. It served survival. The birth of the code, the first real pirate code, at least the first we know of, came from a man named Bartholomew Roberts, also called Black Bart. He commanded one of the most feared fleets in the Caribbean, and yet, his rules read like the constitution of a nation. No gambling. No deserting the ship. No stealing from the crew. Lights out at 8. Weapons clean at all times. And above all, every man was entitled to his fair share of the loot. Black Bart ruled hundreds with those words, not through fear, but through discipline. His men followed him into storms and cannon fire because they believed in the system he created. For all their crimes, pirates achieved something no empire ever could: order without oppression. The Code and the Cross pirates were not godless. They were selective. Some captains kept a small altar hidden in their quarters, a candle, a coin, a splinter of wood shaped like a cross. Not to worship, but to bargain. When they swore upon the Code, they did it before that altar. To break it wasn't just disobedience, it was damnation. Many believed that those who betrayed the Code were cursed after death, condemned to drift forever in Davy Jones' locker, their souls chained beneath the waves. So they obeyed. Not just out of fear of the quartermaster, but fear of the sea itself. Because every man aboard knew the ocean was watching. The unwritten rules. But some laws were never ink on paper. They were carved into memory, silent, sacred customs passed from ship to ship. If a man saved another in battle, he earned life rights. His debt could never be repaid, not with gold, not with obedience, only with equal courage. If a sailor died in service, his share of loot went to his widow or his shipmate of choice. Even the most ruthless captains honored this. And when a man grew too sick or wounded to sail, the crew didn't abandon him. They left him on land with silver in his hand and rum in his flask, a pirate's pension, paid in blood and brotherhood. They lived by a code of chaos, yes, but it had a strange kind of mercy, a morality forged from the fire of suffering. The shadow of the Code, but not every ship kept to it. There were darker captains, men like Edward Ned Lowe, whose cruelty was legend. He tortured prisoners, betrayed alliances, and spat on the Code. His own crew eventually turned on him. Because even in a world of thieves, there were lines that could not be crossed. A pirate who broke the Code didn't just lose his ship, he lost his name. No other crew would take him. No safe harbor would welcome him. He became a ghost, a cursed man, hunted not by navies, but by his own kind. And that was worse than death. The Code's hidden genius. What made the Pirate Code so remarkable wasn't its rules, it was its balance. Every line was designed to prevent chaos in a place where chaos ruled. The captain held power only in battle. The quartermaster ruled in peace. No man was above another, not even the captain himself. It was democracy, distilled through violence and necessity. A system where fairness wasn't moral, it was practical. Because on the sea, tyranny was suicide. The price of order, but order came with blood. The same code that united men also demanded their punishment. There was no forgiveness at sea, no prisons, no second chances. When a man stole food, he starved. When he lied, he bowled. When he betrayed, he vanished beneath the waves, and every man aboard helped enforce it. Imagine the silence of those punishments, the creak of wood, the slap of rope, the splash of water as the body disappeared. The code didn't just keep men alive. It reminded them of what waited if they strayed. The eternal law, when piracy finally began to die. When the Caribbean burned with gallows and flags of surrender, the code didn't vanish. It survived in whispers, in smuggler coves, in old sailors' songs. It became legend, the idea that somewhere out there, a free ship still sails under no nation's law, bound only by honor and the code. And maybe that's why, even now, the world still romanticizes pirates. Because deep down, everyone craves the same thing those men found on the open sea: freedom with meaning. A place where loyalty matters more than birth. Where equality is earned, not granted. Where the only true law is the one you choose to live by. The code wasn't perfect. It was brutal, bloody, and born of desperation. But it gave the lawless a compass, one carved not in gold or ink, but in fear, fairness, and fire. And though their ships have long turned to dust, their creed still sails, unseen but eternal. Because in the end, the code wasn't just about piracy. It was about survival. It was about freedom. And maybe, just maybe, it was about something purer than either. When the sea calls your name and the wind tastes of salt and danger, remember the words that bound every pirate heart. The code is more than law. It is life. Break it, and the sea will break you.